Hello. There's something I've been wanting to talk about, but I haven't found the right format to say it in yet, so I'm just going to tell you auditorily while I work on some stuff. But I've been thinking a lot about the violence that has been going on in America that has been so long-standing and so constant that we haven't even had properly time to process the first tragedy, much less the hundreds that have happened afterwards. And that's a lot. And it's Transgender Day of Remembrance. Not remembrance. Visibility. It's Transgender Day of Visibility today. I always get the two mixed up, but they're very closely intermingled when I'm thinking about those days. And while the issues being had at hand right now are not completely trans issues, but my mind is always drawn back to trans issues because all of queer suffering is interconnected with other suffering of other minorities. And I've been thinking a lot about the queer symbols that we hold dear to ourselves, that we have reclaimed for ourselves. And I'm thinking about how I haven't been able to handle listening to all the suffering of the world lately, and how I've had to use my privilege to turn off the news. And I need to acknowledge that privilege right now on Tdov, because so much of queer existence is political. So much of just being a trans person is just constantly under attack, and I always want to bring understanding to that. Oh, I have to iron this. It's not right. It's all foldy. And I always feel like it's my job to talk about it because that's just what I've been doing since I've been like 16. You know, it's been what's expected of me to be that voice for others when others were too scared to talk. Like the younger people in my community. And right now, as I've been taking my time to withdraw from listening to the news all the time and putting myself in that suffering, because I am holding a lot of suffering within myself, and I haven't really had much space to talk about it on video or anything, but I am dealing with a lot of loss with thinking about my grandma and how she has passed in September, and thinking about how my sister, who just moved to Connecticut, is lost on her own big grand journey, and I'm so excited for her, but it's also a lot. And as I'm taking this time to look inward and be in lockdown and be shut in, the thing that I've noticed the most that I have control over, that I can reach towards, because I can't write gun bills, I can't go to protests right now because my roommate is immunocompromised on her first shot, I'll bet, but still working towards the second one. So I can't do any direct forms of action, but I'm hearing all this suffering. Like, what can I do? And the things that I'm actually doing is that I'm listening to my community members around me, and I'm trying to help them through their struggles right now. And what I'm hearing a lot of is that trans people don't have a safe place to live most of the time. A lot of people in our community are struggling with being able to afford housing, are stuck in abusive relationships, are stuck in relationships that aren't benefiting them, and stuck in places that they can't leave, and they're trapped. And it's awful that so many people in the pandemic have been trapped with bad people, period. That's something that I think we're going to explore more as we leave our homes and get vaccines. But that a lot of us have been very trapped within our homes in suffering in ways that we're not all completely understanding, and we're having different stories around. And I want to talk about how there's so many of my friends who I wish that I just had a big old moving van and that I could just move all of my friends into safe homes and to places that nurtured them and took care of them. Because that's what's being disruptive in my community right now. That's the interlocking issue, I feel like, with various minorities. It doesn't matter your identity. I'm aligning myself with trans struggle because it is the easiest point for me to understand struggle. but it's all locked together. All struggle is locked together in some way, because it is suffering and pain that is the driving force behind all of them. And then we can understand each other better when we listen to each other's pain. Anywho, I'm getting a little philosophical, and it's already 5 minutes in, but I'm just thinking a lot about how I wish there was like a moving van company thing that helped move trans people or people stuck in situations where they feel like they're stuck and they don't have any money and they just want to keep shrinking their belongings and throwing away things that belong to them because they want to be able to fit in a suitcase and not feel anything that is happening around them and just escape from it all. And that's a lot to process from like a lot of my friends around me, because I've just been spending most of my time just talking to them and getting to know their obstacles, and I tell them about mine and my grandma and my housing situation, which is pretty damn good compared to what others are going through right now. I'll give it that. But Fullerton does give me allergies, so I know I have to leave at some point. But yeah, so on this Trans Day of Visibility, I hope if you're listening to this, know that if you're trans and listening to this, I want to speak first to my homies, my communities, the place where I can talk. Is that I see you. I want to be listening to you. Please keep reaching out and trying to find your community. We're out there. We know what you're struggling with. You just need to find your elders and learn. Because there's just so much of our queer history is just not available at all. And the most we ever learn is about Pride, which now is a corporate conglomerate, like walking parade. Unless you're in somewhere cool like San Francisco where like there is no corporations allowed at like Trans Pride, for example. But like most of Pride is corporatized, and corporatized definitions need to be clean, and so much of the queer community doesn't have clean, easy definitions. We have hard, long histories and long hardships, and we have solidarity with the other communities around us because anyone can be trans. So when we think about trans issues, now I'm talking to the cis people, when we think about trans issues, if you want to be a good ally to trans people, you got to be a good ally to everyone. Asian Pacific Islander communities, Native communities, people of color, all of these things are interlocked because we are interlocked as people. Anyone can be trans, anyone can be in a place of misfortune, is how I try to align myself with that. And I just want folks, if they feel like there's nothing they can do right now, to just reach out to their communities around them, start listening to the people around them, and seeing where you can start working on things that need to be helped from there. Because a lot of us aren't lawmakers or the big movers and shakers or the people who can take risks and try to talk to those people with alternative methods such as protests and other things that might occur within that framework of justice and taking action and activism. But yeah. If there's any babies, if there's any eggs who are listening to this, I love you, and I'm thinking of you, and I am reaching out my good vibes and the things that I want for you towards you. And yeah, I've been out for a long time, so I've been around trans people for a long time, and we seem to have a lot of the same issue, which is lack of money and being able to have freedom. And if you're a cis person, think about throwing some cash at your trans friends today, if you can. Primarily like trans women of color, of course, if you can find a donation fund or GoFundMe in that order, or a moving fund. Because that's what I'm thinking a lot about, so I'm gonna share my attention and your attention towards those things. Because I feel like we already know what needs to be paid attention to in the news right now. And I don't need to remind you about that, but it is something that is happening and I want to acknowledge it. Okay. Peace.